Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. I'm here today because I wanted to follow up from yesterday. I mentioned a little bit about my own story with burnout and moral distress, and I wanted to piggyback that with some more information because I think that there are a number of you in this group for a particular reason, being that you're struggling. You're struggling with psychological, moral injury, and sometimes it's really kind of hard to pinpoint, like where are we kind of on the scale? Is this actually something that we're going through? I can't tell you how many times in my history of dealing with these mental and emotional challenges that I questioned myself, that I wondered if my experience was even real. Like, am I really struggling, or is there something wrong with me? Is this actually real? And honestly, that stems from a lot of the abuse and the gaslighting that happens both in personal interrelationships, but also in professional relationships and systemic relationships. So when we are experiencing that kind of abuse where people are taking advantage of us and really dismissing us and not letting us have a voice and pushing us down, it comes to a point where we start to really wonder, is this even real? Like, am I even really experiencing this? Am I just weak? Is there something wrong with me? We start to take it on as a real personal failing. And so just so we're clear, like burnout, depression, anxiety, PTSD, and even moral injury, they have some very specific criteria that we could look at if you need. And there are also assessments that you can do to, if you're questioning, is this something that I'm really going through, or is this just a bad day? Like, is it something else? Like, or if you're really kind of in that place of like questioning your sanity, because I've been there where I've been like doubting every single bit of my experience. But what happens when we get into that kind of place is that we delay getting help, we delay seeking support because we're not confident in our symptoms, but also that there's such a stigma around talking about this. So that's a big part of what I'm doing here with this group and with the podcast, which I know has been a bit on a vacation this summer, but it'll be back in the fall for sure. And but it's really about giving voice, and it's about talking about these things and making it commonplace, and not commonplace in the sense of like it's acceptable, like this is just the norm, but commonplace that we need to talk about what's bothering us. We need to talk about how we're struggling and how we're hurting inside. Otherwise, it just eats us apart. And so that's a bit about what I wanted to share with you today. And there's actually some questions that you can ask yourself that can indicate to you if you are experiencing burnout or worse, or if maybe, it's progressed into depression and anxiety. And I would say that most often they're going hand in hand because we delay for such a long time to seek help for burnout. Burnout alone is often, it's like that really exhausted person, right? So you're really physically drained, feeling fed up, like your batteries are just dead, really tired, no energy to go to work, feeling also like you're really unfocused and unclear, having a hard time concentrating. You're tired, right? And like everything just operates at a much slower processing speed when we're that exhausted, feeling unsatisfied with our accomplishments, often also evaluating ourselves negatively, feeling like we just can't give any more. Like, we just give, and then we come home, and most of us are also giving at home, and it's a lot. It is a lot. It takes a lot from us. When you look at literature on burnout, they talk about 3 characteristics, and one of them is emotional exhaustion. This is probably the first one that people really recognize, is just they're just drained. You're drained and possibly, really triggered and easily crying or easily angry or easily irritable, frustrated, those kinds of things, like just quick triggered. The second one is depersonalization. So where we just kind of detach from everything, or this sort of apathy of like, I just don't care anymore. I just can't be bothered anymore. We start to like really kind of slack on some of the things that we used to take time and really be dedicated and deliberate with, but now we're just kind of like, whatever, I just don't have the energy for it. So we start to really detach and pull away. And then the third thing is also is a low sense of personal achievement. So this is like, you just feel like what you're doing just doesn't even matter, right? Like, it doesn't matter. If I go in that room and I do what I'm supposed to, it doesn't even matter. Like, it's not gonna make any difference. I definitely can relate with all three of these things. Particularly in the early stages of my career when I was in the NICU and I experienced my first burnout. And I mean, I was absolutely emotionally exhausted. I was crying just about every single night to go to sleep, like crying, curled up on the floor, just absolutely sobbing, having nightmares, like flashes of these poor suffering babies that I felt so hopeless and helpless with. And that, you know, really tied into that low sense of personal achievement, because it was like, doesn't matter what I do, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to make the situation better. This baby is still going to be like this. So it just really, it starts to really create a disconnect, which then leads into that third piece where you just start to feel like it just doesn't matter. I don't care anymore. I'm not going to bother putting in, you know, the extra effort. I'll just slack and half-ass and just kind of cut corners and get the job done, but not really give it my all. And this is a really bad place for us to get to, because obviously we're not in this job to just slack and cut corners. We're here to help people. We're here to show up in our best form. And when we are experiencing even just burnout, we are not in our best form to be providing nursing care. Now, do our employers care about that? Probably not. But when we get into situations like this, if we don't address it at this point, it will progress. It will get worse. It will trickle and start to seep into your home life, into your relationships, into everything, your ability to sleep, how you nourish yourself. It has an impact in just about every area of life if we don't address it early. If we don't catch these signs, these signals that I'm going down this slippery slope, and I need to do something about it now. And when you start to get into that, I mean, we're also talking about trauma, right? If you're continually exposed to really awful things, I think of emerge nurses, but also, I mean, everywhere. I mean, if we are working in palliative or working in long-term care, we're exposed to things that traumatize us because we're witnessing such pain and such human suffering. And as many of us are, you know, in that sort of empath category, or those highly sensitive people, we take that stuff on. We bring it straight into our body, straight into our heart, and we feel it. We feel it really deeply. And most of us also are not really taught how to disconnect that, how to leave that in the patient's room, or how to leave that at work before we go home. So we're not only exhausted and completely, you know, coming to a point of disconnection from the work, but we're also being like slaughtered with trauma. And then we go home and then we wonder why we're snappy with our husbands, or we're, you know, impatient with our kids, or we have no energy to go and do activities, or we have, you know, we want to just stuff our face with a bag of chips. I don't just want to lay here on the couch and watch TV. I just want to turn it all off. It's really not, it's not a surprise that we get to that place. But again, I'll just say we need to catch it early. We need to address it early so it doesn't end up creating such a huge impact. It's not that if it gets to that point, you can't still, that there's no hope, that you won't be able to dig your way out. It's just a lot harder. If we push ourselves to the point of absolute exhaustion, and now we're experiencing extreme depression and anxiety, and we have to be off of work because we're not able to function, we're not able to care for ourselves, that's a much more difficult place to dig your way out of than it is if you're in the beginning stages and you're feeling tired and you're feeling a little bit disconnected and you catch that early. I mean, ultimately, we should have programs in place in every facility that is monitoring and watching for these things, and making things like counseling or coaching mandatory in facilities, so that nurses have access to resources on an ongoing basis, not just when they're in the pit of despair, not just when they're at their lowest moment, but I won't get on that soapbox because it's not why I'm on here today. It's more so to tell you, to kind of give you a picture of what this looks like and what it can turn into if we aren't, if we're not willing to speak about it. And that's kind of, I think, the biggest thing that I took away from the study that was done in 2019, and they released it in 2020. So this is before all of this COVID nonsense started in our world. And what they found at that point, like the rates of burnout and depression and anxiety and PTSD and substance abuse they're way higher than any other helping profession, including like police officers, firefighters, and way higher than the general public. But what they also found is that most are not seeking help. And there's many reasons why, right? Like, I mean, we could all sit here and think about why wouldn't a nurse reach out for help if she was struggling? Like, write it in the comments. What comes up for you? I mean, when I think of it, why didn't I reach out? Well, I didn't know where to go. I also didn't want to be seen as that weak, pathetic nurse that couldn't handle it, right? I mean, we're taught really early on, and most of us in nursing school, that it takes a certain type of person to be able to handle this, to be able to like soldier on through all of this really difficult stuff, this really intense, traumatizing work. And if you can't hack it, if you're struggling, then somehow you're not, it's something wrong with you. It's something wrong with you. It's some kind of failure. And I lived most of my life with that kind of label, that there was something wrong with me, having experienced depression since I was in my early teens. And to be in nursing and to be struggling and to see myself going down those paths, it was really like impossible for me to speak about it, because I didn't want another label. I didn't want to be seen like that. You know, I was in this culture of people who are known for eating their young, or, you know, whatever, vice versa. It also, the abuse trickles up as well in age and in different health specialties or areas. And so I didn't want to be that person. So, I mean, I think there's other reasons why we don't speak up and why we don't ask for help, but I believe one of the biggest ones is stigma, and the fact that we tend to just take it on ourselves. We take it on like, this is something wrong with me. It has nothing to do with anybody else or the system. I'm a failure. I'm not able to handle this. And then so we leave it, we suffer in silence, and then it starts to create really significant impacts in our life, and we start to experience things like depression, where we just have no interest in activities that used to give us any kind of pleasure or joy. We're just absolutely exhausted and tired, no energy, easily frustrated, angry, and irritable. We're disconnected, apathetic, hopeless, and helpless feeling. And then, you know, also anxiety. Many of the clients I have worked with in the NurseRx program experiencing depression and anxiety, and actually many of them with suicidal thoughts as well, because this is the reality. This is what it trickles into if we don't address it when we start to see the signs. But even if you're in these, you know, these dark places now, which I know some of you are, there is hope to get out. I've been in the depths of depression. I have been there, and I have managed to claw my way out with support and with resources and tools that I have built over time. So it is not a hopeless place. But the first step is to reach out for help. You know, many of the people I think of that come to me with anxiety and just having, you know, like borderline panic attacks, just thinking about going to work, never mind actually stepping foot into the facility, never mind going into a patient's room. You know, we have this obsessive worrying. It's keeping us up at night. We can't sleep because we're constantly ruminating about everything that we went through that day. And did we do this? Did I do this? Did I miss that? Did I screw that up? Like just this obsessive thinking that leaves us just really literally on the edge all the time, restless, irritable, and it's this high level of activation in our body, and that creates it wreaks havoc on our physical body. So and you know, the list of things, the physical things that can result from leaving these mental and emotional challenges unchecked and undealt with, the list of physical things is it's huge. Essentially every single physical system of our body will or could be impacted. And at that point, when you reach that point, you can't ignore it anymore. You maybe could ignore the burnout. You could, you know, keep pushing on, keep being that, as someone wrote there, like the rock, the support person. You could make it through that. Maybe you even are able to hide your depression. Maybe you're even able to navigate the anxiety to the point of where you can sort of mask it at work, where people don't know that you're struggling. I guarantee, though, probably your home family knows. But the impact that has on your physical body over time, you can't hide from that. When you're having significant chest pain, you can't hide from that. When you have debilitating migraines, you can't hide. When you have such digestive problems that you can't eat, or you can't be, you know, away from a bathroom for a period of time, you can't hide from that. So the physical body is kind of like the last straw to try to get your attention. So anyways, I'm going off, but I really wanted to just paint the picture of what that burnout looks like in the beginning. And, you know, tied to that is the moral injury, moral distress I talked about yesterday. You can always go back and peek at that video if you're wondering about what that's about. But the reality is that if we don't look at things in the early stages, it's a slippery slope, and it will trickle into other areas of our lives. I've got 8 puppies next door, so you can hear them whimpering, showing up as depression, anxiety, and lots of physical manifestations of that, and worse. So why am I sharing this with you? Because because I love you, because I want you to, I want you to reach out for support. There's support right here in this Facebook group. There is support in if you want more individualized and in a community of like-minded nursing women. The Nurse RX program is a really amazing way for you to find that. But just know that you're not alone. Lean into this group, share some of what you're going through, because I guarantee you are not alone. There are other people here who are going through something very similar. And when we share our stories, it really helps to lift some of the heaviness that comes with hiding it. When we can share, we give it light. It's scary to do that, but it loses some of its power. I can tell you, like, pinpoint the day that I spoke about something that was so heavy on my heart, that had been weighing on me forever and was just absolutely eating me apart. And I spoke about it. I shared it with somebody in a safe place, and that day changed my life, because it opened up a door to something that I wasn't open to before, because I wasn't willing to acknowledge how much I was struggling and how much pain I was living with. So please know I am a safe place. You can reach out to me anytime with a message, or you can send me an email through my my website, or you can just send it. It's hope@sandrapaynecoach.com. So anyways, I'm here. I'm going to head to the lake and go for a paddleboard. And I love you all. I wish you nothing but the best. And I'm going to pop on here tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. Okay. Have a good one.